Well, aloha and welcome everyone to today's live stream and today's podcast. My name is Paul Fletcher, and this is The Healing Source. We are deep into series number 10, and I have taken some detours in this series because I wanted to offer different perspectives, different thoughts, combinations of information, combinations of wisdom, combinations of experience, and uh, and how some of the Tao wisdom and technologies applies to all of those different areas. In the previous shows, we have touched on some unique subject matters, including religion and why it has a value and some things to watch out for. We have touched on other subject matter that grazes on the edges of what's possible, what life is really all about. And today is no different. Today I'm going to be focusing on my thoughts on the nature of time. Within the nature of time, the consciousness, the probability of reincarnation, and the very wide subject with probably as little knowledge as possible available on immortality. So I will share with you today some of my thoughts and information that I've gathered over the many, many years on this earth. Unfortunately, I have not been able to retain all the memories of all of the different times I have been in incarnation. If I did, I would probably have quite a bit more to share with you. So, as it tends to be, we tend to wake up over the course of time when we incarnate into life. And that time of waking up, of course, is within a gap of approximately 100 years, which is a very round statement for the typical human lifespan, at least in this current time frame. So, where do we begin with this one? I don't know. It's really kind of a tough one. So, this is not only about the consciousness of time. What is time? Does it really exist? How long has it been here? Where are we in the nature of time? There's a lot of variables we can go with that one. But let's go ahead and start with our current time. So we have the present, we have the past, and we have the future. And in one of my series, it's probably about, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 months ago, I talked a bit about the nature of time, the nature of dimensions, and the association of the two. So I won't regurgitate that same information now. If you missed it, then make sure you go back and subscribe and watch my previous episodes, especially on that subject matter. We here now at this time are projected to live about 100 years if we're lucky. Most of the people are dying around 75 to 80, somewhere in that range. And it actually depends on what country you're in. It depends on multiple factors, including your diet, risks. If you're in the Amazon, you probably don't live much past 50 or 60 because there's so many wild things in the Amazon that could take your life. Whereas if you live in a modern society, we tend to live longer because of the various medicines and techniques to keep us alive. And in the same breath, those things that keep us alive, very often the company that sells you the item that keeps you alive also sells the item that slowly kills you. So we live in a very, very strange life. Now, I'm often asked the question because I am a spiritual teacher and a guide, and I use my spiritual channels quite a bit, and I have my own perceptions and perspectives. And one of the things that I am often asked is, why is my life so hard? I feel like I signed up for the what do you call it, the guillotine run, where you can get smacked 50 different ways from when you start here and try to get to the end course. And you're not alone if you're one of those people saying that too. And my statement to the majority of those people that have wide enough consciousness and wide enough wisdom and awareness, first thing I say is, well, do you believe in reincarnation? And if they say yes, and most of the people I'm already aware of if they do or not, then I'll point out that a typical reincarnation when we enter, this third dimensional vibration, we're typically resolving 2 or 3 lifetimes of mistakes. Because our overall goal as a soul, at least according to what I've come to understand, certainly you don't have to believe it, our overall goal is to become enlightened beings. And that means sloughing off all that is negative, enhancing all that is positive, so that we become pure light and pure love. And it just takes many, many lifetimes to accomplish that. And so one of the things that tends to happen is we will reincarnate, and our soul would have an agenda that we at this physical level might not understand. And that agenda would probably include the ability to, or the desire, if you will, to create some good vibration, do good thoughts, good words, good actions to people, create good karma, basically. So we don't want to make more mistakes. And part of our soul's agenda would be to erase or reverse some of the bad ones that we've made, so that we can, of course, become more and more light and less of anything negative. For a typical life, we might have to deal with 2 or 3 lifetimes worth of stuff. We might run into an old flame from a previous lifetime where we made vows of love to them and then broke those vows and proceeded to break some hearts. And so then in this life, we might have difficulty with relationships because we've broken our vows of love. That's an example, okay? So, but in this life, for a lot of people that I talk to, they're just getting their tail kicked. Every time they turn around, something new is whacking them over the head and bringing suffering to either their physical life, their emotional, their mental state of mind. They go up and down in their spiritual journey. The relationships can be quite treacherous at times. Finances can be very difficult. And people wonder, why am I getting it from every angle? And what I share with them is that, in my observation, in my opinion, in my research, this life was one that our soul ran to the front door to get into, because they knew that this time around there was going to be quite a bit of tumultuousness on earth. And they knew that from chaos is born heroes. From great tumultuousness is born great change and great upward mobility if someone is truly on their spiritual journey. So in one breath, it can be quite difficult, because those who are awake and those who are aware on their spiritual journey, they're basically saying, I'm willing to take whatever you give me. I'm willing to go through whatever it takes, because I'm going to complete incarnation. I'm going to stop reincarnating. I'm going to become an enlightened being. At the soul level, we have this great desire. In essence, what that is saying to the universe is, give me all the mistakes I made before and I'm going to work on solving them. So, in essence, we're dealing with 10, 20, 30, 100 lifetimes, 1,000 lifetimes of mistakes, all at once in one lifetime. And in my observation, that's certainly not the normal. And that can go a long way to explain why this life has been so very, very difficult. So why did your soul run to the front of the line? Why did it decide to be first to come into this incarnation? Because when there is great battle between the darkness and light, there is great opportunity for growth, and there is great opportunity for change, and there is great opportunity for the ability to basically to improve on your soul journey. My teacher, Master Sha, once explained that the saints that sit up in heaven, they do what's called shulian, which translates to spiritual practice. And when they're doing their spiritual practice, they're meditating, they are sending love. Maybe occasionally they will come to help an individual soul that they are connected to. And then they go back and they meditate and continue sending love. And he explained that that kind of Shulian service builds your light body very, very slowly, elevates you through the dimensions until you get to God realm very, very slowly. Where those that take the risk and reincarnate on earth, even if they could have stayed at a saint level upstairs, many of us here on earth, many of us, not, small amount, are beings that are certainly not, God level, but we have went through a high level of training and we are higher level beings. And yet down here, we're getting our tail kicked. And so a lot of that has to do with our agreement, our soul knowingness to come in, deal with the chaos, utilize it towards our benefit, knowing that great masters and great beings, not just my teacher, Master Sha, who I have great love for because I think he's serving many millions in humanity, but there are many other beings of love and light that are serving others by the millions as well. And those great beings tend to become much more predominant in these tumultuous times. So time and the amount of time that we have can be dependent upon how do we process through the various experiences that tend to be stacked upon each other. And again, we can be having some very difficult times with our love life, with our finances, with many different things. But if we are able to see it for what it is, as an example of what I've explained, and we can always, of course, ask for support and help from the source, from the angels, from our own heavens teams. If you are familiar with Master Sha's technologies, there's Tao Water, there's Tao Calligraphy, there's Tao Song, there's Tao Hands and Tao Healing. So all of these facilitate the expediency of moving through and past the various blockages that stand in our way of becoming more love and more light. And our soul knew that there was a good probability of being in front of a high-level being so that we could facilitate a faster gain on our life. So somebody asked me the other day, it was quite interesting, they said, if I took my life, this person is a transvestite, and they chose to move from male to female, and they have a lot of mental emotional blockages around it and what other people are thinking, and they're making a lot of their own blockages by their thought processes. And so they said, well, what if I was just to take my life? Then I could just start over as a woman and everything would be just fine. And I shared with them my perception, which I'm going to share with you here, something to consider. I said, what I'm going to share with you may or may not be accurate, but this is my understanding. I said, in this third dimension, we have this thing called time. And I also believe that in all dimensions of existence, there is manifestation. That in the fourth, fifth, and higher, it's instant. What you think is instantly. If you think you're going to be over there at a waterfall next to your friend, then that's where you're at. It's instant. Whereas here in the third dimension, it is not instant. We have this thing called time, and because we do not have a consciousness that instant is possible, which once for the higher level beings right here on Earth, when they completely adopt that truth, then of course they can instantly manifest gold in their hand, ash in their hand. We've seen it before by the high level beings that are physically here on Earth. It's not something that can be questioned. It's actually provable. So instant manifestation is possible, but the vast majority of us don't know it, don't believe it, don't have anything to gauge it against. Therefore, we believe that when we ask for something, it takes time for it to come to us. And I explained this to her, and I said, you have to be conscientious, because in this dimension, you can say, okay, I'm going to end my life. But in my opinion, in my observation, in my limited experience, and in all my reading, and everything that I've ever obtained in understanding life after we end this one here, I said we transfer over basically as what we are right now, but as a soul, into a higher frequency, yes, but that frequency has instant manifestation. So if you transfer over into a higher frequency and you're carrying a woe is me, life sucks, I'm just going to end this life, no one loves me, depression kind of a state of energy, I said that's what you carry into the next dimension. And because it's instant manifestation, you regurgitate it over and over and over, and you never get out of your self-professed loop of self-destruction and anger and hatred and loathing and whatever energy you bring into that next dimension. And I said it's hard to get out of that. This is, in my understanding, the nature of hell. We create our own hell based on our present consciousness and our presumptive consciousness upon crossing over. So I said, you could create a structure where hundreds and possibly centuries go by before enough light is allowed into your vibration, before you're able to see that you're in a time loop. You don't even know it. And then eventually you will reincarnate, but you would have spent far too much time in a place thinking that you were going to solve your problems. I then suggested to them that in this life, while they're here, to take a different perspective on why these things happen, learn more about forgiveness, learn more about how to transform these negative perspectives, be responsible for their thoughts, their words, and their actions. Don't blame others outside of themselves, which a lot of us do. And I said, and in that, you will create a much higher positive vibration for yourself and for your future. They responded positively to that and said they would like to learn more. So my point is, time and reincarnation often cohabitate in that when we finish this time here, in my opinion and my observation and the research that I've worked with, which by the way, up until about 18 years ago, I didn't necessarily in reincarnation. I knew about it, but I wasn't bought in on it. And it was only after working with a high-level spiritual being that I came to understand that, yeah, it really does exist. Now, again, that's just me. And so should that be true, should it exist, then everything else I've ever come to understand about reincarnation also exists. So what does that mean? Well, our soul lives forever. We do not. And so if we are reincarnating, then we are bringing into the space in between, where we go in between the next incarnation, and we bring forth all of the good and all the not so good from this life. And then we get to try again, right? Do it over. Who do we reincarnate with? How is that decided? There's all kinds of information about that. Hard to say. I truly do not know. The information out there says, well, you pick and choose who your parents are. You decide, a variety of things, and also there's certain things you might not have control over. For example, where you enter, what time you enter, things of that nature may or may not be under our control. How long between incarnations? I truly do not know. My teacher shares that it could be as little as 49 days. He often shares that in certain teachings, belief systems, that there's a 49-day gap. And I don't know that to be true. I hear that that's what he says. I say, okay, that's a possibility, but because I have no way of validating it, I'm just going to leave it as a possibility. So what he shares is that when we cross over, we go through a 49-day cycle where there's not necessarily a judgment as much as a review, and then we reincarnate. And he says if you want that to be lengthened, then you become more and more of a saint when you're in the physical realm, and or if you're already a saint and you're in the spiritual realm, what he shares is that no more than 500 Earth years would go by, and then a saint has to reincarnate here, maybe not here, but someplace to further elevate their structure. So he says the more enlightened you are, you're not quite at God level yet, then you'll probably have to reincarnate. And the longer you stay in heaven depends on how high of a spiritual being you are. That's what he shares. I trust my teacher. I believe most everything he says, but certain things, I'm still waiting for some forms of validation before I can say, yeah, that's what happens. So let's tie that in. So now we have talked about a little bit about time. We've talked a little bit about reincarnation. Let's talk a little bit about immortality now. So this is a subject matter which I'm certainly not qualified to be talking about at all, with very minor exception, which is I am in this teacher's advanced sessions and classes. Most of those advanced sessions and classes, their purpose is to elevate our frequency and vibration. Their purpose is to remove any and all thing that is negative, any and all negative thoughts, any and all negative words, any and all negative actions, entirely and completely from our field and from our vibration. The purpose of the advanced sessions and classes is to move to a deep, deep state of purity and a deep, deep state of quietness. And the wisdom is, and this I'm sharing what's already in his book, so I'm not releasing any of the deeper secrets. If you want to get the Tao 1, Tao 2 book, or the Tao 3 book, they all use the word immortality on the title. So much of what I share is already in these books. And what he would share is that when you reach these deeper states of emptiness, then you're able to connect to the higher realms, and you actually receive downloads, if you will, of higher frequency and vibration, wisdom and information, and the possibility of reaching a higher level. Now, he also goes on to state that it's very, very difficult, almost an impossibility, although it is possible, to reach a state of immortality, which he then goes on to share does not mean that we remain in this body. He made it clear, immortality does not mean we remain here, because I've talked to a lot of people about it. Like, I don't want to live, 80, 90, 100, 200, 300 years old. Why would I want to do that? I'm just going to be old, creaky, and moaning, right? I'll have no teeth. Why would I want to do that? And this is actually an extremely limited consciousness about what does immortality mean. Because if somebody is at that level, that means that they have already purified their physical body, their emotional body, their mental body is completely pure. They have no thoughts. That means they're spiritually very, very aware of the nature of the entirety of all creation. That means that they are a light being. Their physical, just like Star Trek, can disappear and reappear instantaneously. They can be a monk, and they can disappear and go over here and be a beggar. They can disappear and go over here and be a woman, and they can help people that way. So immortality means you're not limited by the third dimensional restrictions. That's what immortality gives you the capabilities of. It means you have a very high consciousness of the nature of all creation, and you're malleable through all the particles of creation. Someone who is an immortal, they're not limited by the construct of any of matter. They in fact manipulate matter and can construct anything instantly. Instant manifestation, they can manifest their own body, etc., etc. So immortality does not mean that you're going to be here, for many thousands of years. That's a concept that needs to be understood. So when we take a look at where are we, 20 minutes into this explanation, I've talked a little bit about time, a little about reincarnation, and a snippet of immortality. So what does that mean? What do we do with this, right? Well, we're here. We're getting our tail kicked by life, by relationships, by finances, by health issues, blah, 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 right? We've all got our own sob stories. We can all write our own book, a novel on how difficult our life has been. For what? What's the purpose? The purpose of life is to serve. The purpose of this life is to address those various sufferings with a higher perspective, the perspective of an enlightened person or an enlightened soul. When we address any form of a suffering, any form of an irritation, any form of anything with with a detached, higher level of perspective, why did this occur? What's the reason behind it? There is the law of cause and effect that's always in place. Again, a belief that I adhere to. The law of cause and effect is always in place. For every cause, there is an effect. And so if something's happening in my life and I can't identify the cause of something that happened in this third dimensional time frame, then it's very likely it happened in a previous third dimensional time frame, in a previous incarnation. But from the detached observer's point of view, I can say, this has entered my vibration. Normally, if I was unawake, I would react. If I was unawake, I would respond. I would have a series of emotions and reactions and da-da-da-da-da. But someone that is working towards stopping reincarnation and becoming enlightened and moving towards stopping the entirety of the unpleasantness that can occur with third dimensional life, they address everything very differently. They address it from a conscious perspective. And it's nice and pretty and it's easy to say, not so easy to do. When in my case, I got a 3-year-old that you tell her to do something, she looks right at you and says, no. What do you do, right? I've learned that sometimes I just laugh at her and she starts laughing right back. Because what's the other option? Smack them? That's going to create some not so positive, frequency and vibration between you two. So, every moment we have to make choices with what comes at us. And life, and especially in this time frame, in this special time that we're in right now, where the darkness and the light they're in change. We're moving from darkness to light, period. And of course, the darkness is not going to, okay, you win. We're just going to put our hands down and go back to our little corner. We're not going to fight all the way, okay? So along that, we came in at this time because from chaos breeds heroes. And we are in the hero state if we can address these things in the moment. But it is a marathon, not a race. So this is why I really appreciate the wisdom and teachings Master Sha has brought to us, because he in essence has said, I know it's hard, and I'm here to assist you if you want to go down this road. If you're interested in the enlightenment journey, if you're interested in clearing these blockages and not having to deal with them lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, then I have a pathway that can serve you. If not, then that's okay. I have no attachment. I just have a desire to help elevate as many souls as possible on their enlightenment journey. Some people it resonates with, some people call him a charlatan, some people say, no way, I'm a devout Christian, that's hocus pocus. Everyone has a perspective. So wherever they're at on their journey, it's really, really important to honor them. Very, very important. Doesn't matter where they're at, doesn't matter if they say something negative about your journey. Just honor where they're at, give them love, give them compassion, give them forgiveness. And all of this keeps you from creating new negative information between you and that other person. So now I'm going to go down the deep end a little bit. We're going to expand into other possibilities. We've talked about time. We've talked about reincarnation. We've talked about immortality. And all of this is specific to our experience here on this plane, on this planet. What about other dimensions? What do souls do in those other dimensions? What about life inside of us? Our Master Sha teaches that everything has a soul. Don't you think one of your cells is trying to reach a higher evolution? Maybe it's trying to become an organ. Maybe that's the next level. Maybe an organ tries to become a system. Maybe that's the next level. In other words, if you go all the way down to the smallest bacteria on Earth, and then all the way up to us, and certainly above us, there's always something that's in a process of evolution or in a process of frequency shift to a higher frequency. We tend to perceive the entirety of all creation through our five senses, and we tend to try to bring ourselves to life based on what we've learned up to this point. Nothing wrong with that, it's the best we've done, but to assume that we have all the knowledge necessary to make the best decision is really a massive ego. So the person that can move the highest in their spiritual evolutionary journey is the person that recognizes, I am so far from knowing everything needs to be known, and I will work with what I have, but I will not fall into the trap of assuming that when I analyze something with all the information that I have, that I am absolutely right. That would be a big mistake. Of course, sometimes we have to make choices, but we want to always leave bumpers and space around our current knowledge to allow for more to enter. One of the things on a little off note that my teacher would say is, he says, in the ancient traditions, one teacher would pass on the wisdom to one, maybe two students. And this was to protect heaven's secrets, because you cannot release heavenly secrets without permission. And he said, when I was given the task to help enlighten as many in humanity as possible, I released a lot of the ancient secrets from many, many thousands of years ago. And he said, I always ask permission, but what I've discovered is that the more I empty the closet, the more new wisdom comes in that I never received from many of my master teachers that taught me. He said, so there's so much more that heaven has not released that I'm able to both perceive, receive, and then share with others because I've emptied my closet. So that's an interesting piece of advice for you as well. Real briefly, and I'm going to talk about this quite a bit more next week, what about life that's not here on Earth? What about life that's within Earth, or life that's outside of us? Are we the only planet? Is there life in other places? Science will tell you there's a possibility here. There's a maybe there. There appears to be oxygen there. There appears to be water there. So there's a possibility of life. For those that say, this is it, or Earth is it, there's no life outside of here, they're living in a very, very small world of possibility. It's kind of like you hit the wall and say, that's the wall, there is nothing beyond this wall. And there's no space in there like I described. You want to leave room and bumpers and space for more possibilities. You want to clean out the closet of the things that we think we know so that a wider girth of wisdom and information has the potential of coming in to awaken us. It is my personal belief that within the next, I would say, 3 years, the world will no longer be able to deny that there's life outside of Earth. I personally believe they've been here forever, like hundreds of thousands, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands, probably billions of years, life outside of Earth. That's my own personal belief. But certainly they've been in and around this area for many hundreds of thousands of years. I think they've had a direct impact on our life. And I think they've even had a direct impact on the various belief systems and religions. So there's a lot that goes down various rabbit holes, I guess you could put it. And in the spiritual journey, we don't want to go down those rabbit holes too far because it takes us away from simply going within. The key to the higher levels of enlightenment and immortality is simply going within and having less. And I know that is true, and I am moving towards that. But I also want to say that if we are oblivious of and ignorant of the possibility of life outside of us, or life, for example, within Earth, then we are causing ourselves to be in a space of ignorance that does not allow for our soul to have a wider growth, a wider understanding. Because the moment we do reach enlightenment, the moment we do reach a state of immortality, which there are two different ranges. Enlightenment is far easier to reach than immortality, far easier. So when we reach a high layer of enlightenment, all of a sudden there's a cascade of wisdom and information about life everywhere. And the aha moments come on, we realize just how minuscule our comprehension has been here on Earth. Okay? It's like the ant discovering humans and airplanes and cows and other countries. The ant discovers something called, a redwood tree. The ant discovers something called an airplane. The ant discovers something called, a rainbow. It's always been there, just like all of these things I'm mentioning have always been there. But if we're oblivious to it or we don't allow space for it, then we're missing the point. So source is unlimited. There is, source is often described as everything within the circle. But that circle is ever expanding because every thought you've ever had expands the circle. Just me talking to you expands your thought, expands the circle. So creation is always creating. It is never not creating. And that goes in all possible directions, in all possible dimensions. Again, I shared with you, I'm not going to regurgitate the dimension and time conscious thought process that I've obtained up to date. I did that about 6-8 months ago. Go back and listen to that. But it will give you some enlightenment on the nature of our senses and how we limit by our 5 senses: touch, smell, sound. If I can't see it, it must not be real. If I can't smell it, taste it, if I can't describe it with my scientific mind, it must not be real. And that is just another layer of ignorance, another layer of ego. Hope that doesn't hurt anybody's feelings, but if it does and it causes you to open your box a little bit and think outside the box, great. So this is a big rabbit hole of possibility. I just wanted to give you that information today. Maybe some of you have heard, maybe some of it you haven't. Maybe it gave you some new aha moments. And maybe for some of you, it pushed your buttons and irritated you a little bit. Great. There's always room to grow. So I want to thank you for coming. I'm going to go ahead and sign off for now. Next week, we'll probably choose some wild rabbit hole subject like life outside of Earth. And we'll see some of the information that's out there on that. Okay? All right. Talk to you soon. Until then, have an awesome day, everybody. Bye-bye.